Welcome everyone. We are just going to be waiting a couple of minutes for everyone to get logged into the session, so we will be with you shortly. We'll give it about another minute or so, and then we'll get started. All right, that probably wasn't a minute, but I feel like getting started. So welcome everyone. My name is Michael Silvernail. I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid here at the School of Public Health. And Sinead, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sinead Mulu, and I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid.
So just a couple of housekeeping items here. First off, just be aware that we may not have the opportunity to answer every question that might come up during this session, but there are going to be plenty of opportunities for you to reach out to us if you do have additional questions. So this won't be your only opportunity. Secondly is if you do have questions during this session, please put those questions in the Q&A option, not the chat option. So they will be monitoring the Q&A. We'll be answering questions as we go along. And if there are questions that might be of general interest, she will let me know and I will try to answer those questions. I'm going to turn off my video while I'm doing the presentation, but then I'll turn it on at the end when we're going to have a general Q&A session at the end of the slides. All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Michael and myself and Sinead are holding this session. And the first thing to be aware of is who is eligible to complete a grant or scholarship application. The eligible programs are our academic year residential MPH programs, our academic year residential Masters of Science programs, the Doctor of Public Health, the MPH in Epidemiology, the MPH Generalist Online program, and then PhD applicants. PhD applicants will automatically be fully funded. You're going to apply separately for that. So that's not something you have to worry about applying for through here. There are some programs where you're not eligible to apply for scholarship assistance, and that includes the Masters in Healthcare Management, and then the summer only or summer focused Masters in Science and MPH programs. There's also eligibility for federal financial aid for many programs, but not all. Federal financial aid is for federal student loans and the federal work-study program. So eligibility for the federal aid programs include, again, the Masters in Public Health residential programs, the Masters of Science residential programs, the online MPH Generalist program, and the Doctor in Public Health. The programs that are not eligible for it are the MPH in Epidemiology, the Masters in Healthcare Management, and the summer only or summer focused Masters of Science and MPH programs. There are some key dates that you need to keep in mind for the financial aid process. First, in early to mid-December, you're going to receive an email from our office letting you know that the financial aid application is now available. And it's very important that you complete that application between when that becomes available and January 8th, which is the deadline. We will only consider for scholarship assistance students who do complete that application. So it's very important that you make sure you submit it. If you get to the beginning of January, I would strongly encourage you, even if you think you've submitted it, to log back into your portal, and you'll get more information about your portal in early to middle December, just to make sure that it shows it's being received. Also, for domestic students, we strongly encourage you to submit the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. It's not mandatory for scholarship consideration, but it is mandatory if you want to be considered for any federal loans or federal work study. So we certainly encourage you to get that filed as well by that January 8th deadline. So when you're thinking about completing your financial aid application, one of the other things you want to consider is the cost of attendance. Now, this is just an example for the 2022-2023 year of the MPH 45 cost, both the tuition and fees, health insurance, and also estimated living expenses. But this is number one for the current academic year, 2022, 2023, and it's just for a single program. We won't know what the new costs are for the degree programs until later on during the late winter, early spring. But this can give you a rough example of what your cost might be. And if you use the student budgeting tool, where you'll see the link here in the slides, you can go to that tool and put in your own individual program, and that will let you know what the current tuition and fees costs are. And then later in the cycle, you'll be able to find out what the cost for the 2023-2024 academic year will be. We also have a link here for housing. This is where you can find information about housing costs. And so we highly encourage you to review the cost of the program when you're thinking about applying for financial aid. So we mentioned that in addition to tuition and fees, there's also a living expense component. Now, living expenses are going to vary student to student. So this is just going to be a rough estimate of what the costs may be for students. And when you're looking at these costs, the costs are presuming that you're living with a roommate. So this is not the cost you might incur if you're living by yourself. And you should also be aware that Boston is a very expensive housing market. So it's certainly possible to pay a great deal more than this when it comes to rent. You should do as much as you possibly can to minimize your costs when it comes to rental expenses. That's something which is to a certain extent in your control. We also have a rough estimate for food per month, personal expenses, and transportation. So this gives you an approximate $2,780 a month, which is how much we currently have as roughly the estimate of what living expenses students are going to incur during the academic year. All right, now this is something I'm sure a lot of people are interested in, which is what is the likelihood that students will receive scholarship assistance from the School of Public Health, and how much might the amount be? Unfortunately, there's not a simple answer to that because it's going to vary a lot depending upon the program you apply to. This gives rough estimates of the percentage of students who receive some scholarship support from the school and roughly how much that funding is. So as you see, it varies pretty substantially between programs. But one of the big takeaways when you look at these programs is, in general, funding is limited. Unfortunately, we have a modest total amount of funding available for scholarship aid, which means the majority of students, unfortunately, aren't receiving scholarship support. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, because as you see, there is a not insignificant percentage of students who do receive some support. So we certainly strongly encourage all students to apply. So don't, while we have to be realistic when it comes to the amount of funding we have, we certainly encourage everyone to submit an application for consideration. And we will also talk about a little bit later about the fact that you should certainly also be looking for all external sources of scholarship aid as well. So don't rely purely upon the funding opportunities at the School of Public Health. Make sure you're looking at all the different opportunities you might have. In addition to the funding specifically from the School of Public Health, there are some Harvard-wide funding opportunities as well that you would apply through separately. These include the Zuckerman Fellowship, if you're doing a joint degree in business, law, or medicine, the Commonwealth Fund for students who are interested in minority health policy, and the Foreign Language and Area Studies Program. You can find more information about these on our website. So if these are the types of funding opportunities that you're interested in, be aware these do have a separate application and they may have separate deadlines. So we encourage you to review our website to see if this is something that you may be interested in. Be aware you have to be a full-time student. And unfortunately, if you're applying for the MPH-EPI program, summer-only programs, or the Master's in Healthcare Management, or you're going to be a part-time student, you're not going to be eligible for these opportunities. As I mentioned before, we strongly encourage you to look into all external scholarship opportunities out there. Now, this is hit or miss. There are some students who certainly do find opportunities, and we have put together an external funding database of different scholarships which past students have received. So when we find an opportunity which is a viable option, because we've seen students who have received it, or through our research, if we find out opportunities that we think are going to be of interest to students in the program, we'll add it to this external scholarship database. And so if you look on our financial aid website under our scholarship section or on the financial aid website or the admissions website under the financial aid section, you're going to see some links to both our external funding database and the Community of Science Pivot Tool, which has other opportunities which we highly encourage you to look at. It's going to be very important to start as early as possible to take advantage of looking at, in addition to those databases, talking to any people in your community who might know of other opportunities, talking to your undergraduate institution to see if they know of any opportunities. The basic message is make sure you look into all different opportunities that you might have. You may find that there's an opportunity that we know nothing about, which is specific to your particular circumstance. So certainly take advantage of all the possible opportunities. All right, so now we're going to switch from scholarships to loans and student employment. There are federal loans available for domestic students who are enrolled in at least half-time, which means for at School of Public Health, a minimum of 10 credits per semester. Most students are going to be eligible to borrow up to $33,000 a year in the direct unsubsidized loan and can potentially borrow up to the full cost of attendance in federal loans by borrowing the Grad Plus loan over and above the direct unsubsidized loan. Now, the reality of these are their loans, which means they do need to be repaid. There are some opportunities on federal loans to have loan forgiveness through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. The way this works is if a student borrows federal loans and repays those loans on an income-based repayment plan while working for a qualified employer, which means working for a 501c3 nonprofit or for a U.S. federal, state, or local government on a full-time basis, then the way this program works is at the end of 10 years, students will have forgiven the federal loans which are left over on those student loans. But you have to have the right type of loans, which means federal loans, on the right type of repayment plan, which means on an income-based repayment plan, while working full-time for the right type of employers. So this can be a viable option for students. It's not the kind of thing you have to apply for now. You would apply for it after you go into repayment. But you do need to be aware that you do have to do everything right. You have to have the right type of loan, the right type of repayment while working for the right type of employer. So there are options, but federal loans certainly are options for students. But we certainly also want to encourage all students to be as conservative with their borrowing as possible. You don't want to find yourself in this situation where you borrow so much in loans that you don't feel like you have the freedom to make the kind of choices you want to make for your future career. So do try to be careful when borrowing, but there are federal loan options available for students to cover their educational program costs. In addition to federal loans, there's also a program called Federal Work Study. This is a program where if you are interested in working while in school, it provides an incentive for the school or potentially other nonprofits to hire you, because the way it works is students who have federal work study, it subsidizes the cost of your earnings so that it costs the employer significantly less to hire you if you have federal work study than if you don't have federal work study. So we do have quite a few students here at the school who work under work study. It's not going to meet the majority of your cost. Generally, you would never work more than 20 hours per week. Typically, a student might work 10 hours per week, for example, and it's an hourly paid type of opportunity. So you'll get a paycheck each week, which can help you with your living expenses, but it's not going to come with a tuition waiver. Similarly, sometimes students ask about whether or not there are tuition waivers available for students who work as, say, teaching fellows or teaching assistants. There are students who work as teaching fellows and teaching assistants, but just like work study, what that means is you'll get a paycheck. They don't also come with a tuition waiver. Unfortunately, the only kind of tuition waiver that's available is if you are a full-time employee of Harvard, they do have what's called TAP, which is a tuition assistance program, but you can only qualify for that if you are a full-time Harvard employee. So just to reiterate here, the application for federal financial aid is going to become available at the early to middle of December. You'll get an email from us with information about how to apply. The deadline to submit that application is going to be January 8th, and it's going to be extremely important for you to make sure that you submit that application by January If you're interested in some of the external scholarship opportunities offered at Harvard, such as the Zuckerman Commonwealth Fund or FLASH program, those will have separate applications and have separate deadlines. So you should do your research on our website to make sure you understand what those deadlines are, and that you can get everything in on time. And then if you're interested in any kind of federal aid when it comes to the federal loans or work study, we strongly encourage you to submit the FAFSA by that January 8th deadline as well. We have our federal school code here, but when you go to the FAFSA website, you can type in Harvard University and then School of Public Health. And then that information, you'll find our school to link. And again, we're also going to strongly encourage you, if you do have questions after this session, we are more than happy to answer any questions if you send an email to our financial aid email address. So you can send it to financialaid@hsph.harvard.edu, and we are certainly happy to answer any questions. But with that, I am now going to open it up for questions. Let me turn on my video here so people can see me. And Sinead, are there questions that people have that you think we should address more broadly?
I believe most of the questions were regarding where to access this recording for those that joined us a little bit later. I believe Charlie did address it on here, that it will be on the event website. So the recording will be linked there. And some questions about housing for the MPH-EPI program. I did share the link on there for the 2 months that you'll be in person. And I think we have one current question. Okay, so about priority deadline. Do students who come from low-income background have a stronger chance of being recipients of scholarship or grants?
Thank you for that question. So when we're making our scholarship decision, it's a combination of factors. We're looking at merit, we're looking at your current financial need, and then we're looking at socioeconomic diversity. So socioeconomic diversity is sort of your historical ability to have a network of support from either from your family or from saved resources. So that's going to look at what your socioeconomic background is. We're going to look at things like, were you a Pell Grant recipient as an undergraduate? Was your family a recipient of any kind of sort of public support programs? Did you come from a high school that had a low percentage of high school graduates? So we are going to look at those types of factors when we look at socioeconomic diversity. When it comes to current financial need, we're going to be looking at the information you supply on your financial aid application about your income and assets and about your total student loan indebtedness. And then there's a merit component as well.
Thank you, Michael. And we do have a question about the funding for PhD now being mentioned. Michael, would you mind going over that information?
Sure, thank you. So just to clarify, there's a difference between the DRPH and the PhD. PhD students, if they're admitted, are fully funded by the program. The PhD program, you apply through the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, not through the School of Public Health, and you don't complete a financial aid application with the School of Public Health. You should, however, reach out to the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences if you have any questions about any materials they might provide. But basically, if you are admitted to the program, they are fully funding you for that program. When it comes to the Doctor of Public Health, DRPH, that's a little different. For that program, you do submit a financial aid application to the School of Public Health. And if you demonstrate that you have financial need, the way it works is there is funding available, which is equal to 50% of the tuition cost for the first 2 years of the program. After that, the tuition cost of the program drops by half. So you don't receive any additional scholarship support after the first 2 years, but your net cost ends up being the same. So you do need to submit a financial aid application if you are applying to the DRPH. You do not need to submit one if you're applying to the PhD.
Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Ahmed, I hope that answers your question. Ellie is asking, does the MPH 45 generalist and the MPH dual, the online, so it would be the MPH-EPI, qualify for the Harvard-wide scholarships? So this is for MPH Gen and MPH-EPI.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't. For those programs, you have to be full-time, then they're not considered to be full-time programs.
Great, thank you for that. I'm not sure if Charlie would be able to support on this. There's a student that would like to know if there is an application fee waiver for SOFAS.
I can chime in, Sunny.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Charlie from the admissions office. I'm here in the background. So yes, there are opportunities for a application fee waiver, and I will post a link in the chat shortly. There are two options, one of which is through SOFAS directly, which is SOFAS's fee assistance program. They have certain criteria and guidelines that they use to allocate fee waivers. And then separately, the School of Public Health has a limited number of coupon codes available for students. And the eligibility criteria is posted on our website. So I will share more information in the chat shortly. But if you have any questions about the fee waivers in particular, you can always reach out to the admissions office and we're happy to provide you with some additional information. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Charlie. Michael, for masters, whether you choose to apply to the MPH 45 or 60 or 80, so this is for the Master of Science program, affect the chances of getting a scholarship?
Oh, it's hard to answer. It is one of the factors that goes into it, but I don't have specific information available for the percentage, a breakdown between programs. It is not necessarily the same. There are a lot of factors that go into it, especially because some programs are much longer than others. So funding obviously has to be extended, depending upon the length of the program. So unfortunately, I don't have a specific answer for that. The percentages I put earlier in the slides are sort of aggregated for the Master in Science program, not broken out by individual program.
Thank you for that. Are there resources for the MPH EPI hybrid program available to offset cost?
So for the MPH EPI, you are able to apply for financial aid. And so that is certainly one opportunity. There are some loan programs that you can borrow through. It's not through the federal loan programs, but there is private loan borrowing options. And Sinead, I don't know if you can put in the chat the link. It looks like Sinead's about to do that. So Sinead is going to put into the chat the link for where our less than half-time program link is for lenders who have indicated that they are prepared to lend to students in the MPH EPI program. Some of them include, for example, the Harvard Credit Union. So there are some programs, but be aware, unlike, say, loan borrowing for students who are in full-time programs where repayment typically begins 6 months after you finish your program, in these other programs for, say, the MPH EPI, repayment will begin after the loan has been dispersed. So just be aware of that this is something you're going to have to be repaying while you're in school, not after you've finished your program, or not just after you finish the program.
Thank you for that. Next question. Does the MPH 45 schedule allow part-time work during regular work hours during the week, or does part-time job need to be scheduled on the weekend? So I believe this question is to say, would you be able to attend the program as a part-time while you're employed part-time? Anna, please do let us know if we did not capture your question accurately.
Right. So I was interpreting it as indicating for MPH students looking at the question, can you work if you're a full-time MPH student, can you work during the week, or do you only have time to work on the weekends? So I'm going to answer it that way, which if that's not the way it was intended, do let us know. But yes, I mean, it's all going to depend upon your individual class schedule. So if you take courses that allow you to work during the workday, then you're going to be able to work during the workday. There are definitely students here who are working during the workday, and generally, especially if you're working for the school, you typically would get a job that you would then work around your classes. And the different employers here and the different departments and programs are all aware that students are here first and foremost for their educational program. So generally, whatever your job is you'd be working would be scheduled around your availability based upon your classes. Certainly, there are students who work on the weekend as well. But it's really, there isn't one specific answer because it's really going to depend on your specific class schedule.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next question. Are parent income considered when applying, or is it considered even if they do not provide financial support?
We do not ask about parental income and assets when we complete the application. That being said, if your parents are paying for your program, you already know that ahead of time, it may not necessarily be necessary for you to apply for financial aid. But if you do apply for financial aid, we're only going to be looking at your own income and assets, you and your spouse's income and assets. We wouldn't be looking at your parents' income and assets. Now, on the financial aid application, however, there is one question that says, is anyone else providing financial support for you in the program? So if you are, you do have to disclose whether or not, if your parents are providing you, let's say they are planning to pay for your full tuition costs, we do expect you to disclose that as part of your financial aid application, but we're not otherwise looking at your parents' income and assets.
Yeah, thank you for that. We do get this question more often, and usually the best rule of thumb is, as graduate students are considered independent, we do not factor or consider parent information. Thank you for that, Michael. Next question is related to the student health insurance. Can coverage be per semester, fall or spring only? Or if enrolled in the student health insurance, is coverage only available for the entire school year? So this is questions about the student health insurance.
Sure. So yes, you can do insurance on a semester by semester basis. In order to not take insurance if you're a full-time student, you have to have other insurance, comparable insurance. So there are cases, for example, where a student is under the age of 26 when they first attend and therefore are taking the insurance for, or not taking the insurance for the fall semester because they're covered under a parent's policy, but then they turn 26 and are no longer eligible to be on their parents' plan, and therefore they need insurance for the spring. And you can then sign up for it for the spring. So it is possible to do it for one semester, not the other. But if you're going to waive it at all, you need to demonstrate that you have comparable insurance in order to be allowed to waive it.
Thank you for that. And I believe another question that we have also was addressed with what you said, Michael, just possibly reiterating.
Yes.
If
And I waive medical insurance.
Yeah,
Yes.
if they have a medical insurance, can they waive it? That answer is yes. And I also have shared information on health insurance and how you can pursue the waiver process when it's time.
Thank you. And just to clarify, while health insurance itself can be waived, generally the health fee can't be waived. So there's two different components. There's health insurance and then a health fee. So in most cases, the health fee for full-time students can't be waived, but generally the medical insurance can be if you have comparable coverage.
Great. Another question about how tuition is billed for the MPH EPI and MPH Gen program. Is it per term, upfront, or is there any payment plans available directly through the university?
I am going to defer to Sinead because she will answer this question much more expertly than I will.
So the MPH EPI program is billed over summer, fall, and spring, whereas the MPH Generalist program is billed over fall and spring. So whatever the tuition amount is for the MPH EPI, that will be divided in 3, and you'll be charged 1/3 of tuition over summer, fall, and spring. So the tuition is that 1/3 of it for the MPH EPI is billed in the summer all at once, and you will have a month to pay that. But there is a monthly payment plan through the university that you can enroll into. And that generally just divides up your payment based on the length of time for that semester. So for the summer, it would probably be over 2 months. And the first month payment will be the payment deadline. And generally there is a fee associated with it. It's $35 through the university that you'll be charged for enrolling in the monthly payment plan. And that's not for the academic year, it's per each semester. And for the MPH Generalist, it's half of the tuition rate. So 1/2 will be charged in the fall and the other half in the spring. And you can enroll in a monthly payment plan similarly to the MPH EPI program. And that would be over 4 months, I believe, that you'll be paying the monthly payment plan.
Great. Thank you, Sinead.
You're welcome. Next question. Is full funding possible for an MPH course?
The answer is yes, it's possible, but possible is not the same thing as likely. There are some limited opportunities where there are some few students who do receive full funding. There is, for example, a program I mentioned earlier, the Zuckerman Fellowship Program. The Zuckerman Fellowship does have a tuition and fees plus a living expense component that can be the full cost of attendance. The Commonwealth Fund that we mentioned also is full funding. We have a Presidential Fellows Program, which can, in some limited circumstances, provide funding that's in excess of tuition and fees that can cover some component or at least a piece of the living expenses, but those are very limited. So the answer is yes, there are some opportunities. However, there's only a few of them. So the vast majority of students who receive funding are receiving somewhere between 25% to 50% of tuition when it comes to funding.
Thank you, Michael.
Mhm.
Next question is, are merit scholarship awarded in addition to financial aid awards?
Again, that's kind of a nuanced question. The funding that's coming through our School of Public Health consideration, it's going to be a combination, merit, need, and socioeconomic diversity. So all those factors will go into it when it looks at the funding that we're looking at. When it comes to the Zuckerman Fellowship Program, the Commonwealth Program, the Foreign Language and Area Studies Program, those are based upon merit, not on financial need. So there are some components which are purely based upon merit, but most of the funding that we offer is going to be a combination of all those factors.
Great. Follow another question for the DRPH program. Does the student health insurance offered by the university, by the Harvard, cover spouse and dependents?
Not quite. There is insurance available you can purchase through the university to cover spouse and dependents, but that would be a separate cost. It's sort of an add-on cost to the basic insurance. So they would be on your insurance plan through the university, but it's not built in to the cost that you are incurring as an individual student. So it will cost you more, but it is available.
I'm just putting the rates for dependent health insurance in the
So
chat.
I will read the next question then.
Yes.
Did I understand correctly that I would only be eligible for TAP benefits if I'm working a full 40-hour week for Harvard during my time of study? I'm going to defer that question to suggest that you should go to, if you are a Harvard employee, go to the Harvard employee website and go through the details about who is eligible to use TAP. I don't want to speak out of turn about a subject that I'm not expert at. I would say, for example, 40 hours, it's not necessarily 40 hours. Typically, you have to be a full-time employee, but that doesn't necessarily mean 40 hours. But I would, rather than going into any kind of specific detail about how you qualify for TAP as a Harvard employee, please go to the Harvard employee website, and there's a section that talks about eligibility for TAP.
Great. Thank you, Michael. If I enroll myself in MPH course, can I take my partner along with me, my wife along with me?
So I'm not sure if this is a question from an international student or a domestic student. We're having a separate session tomorrow specifically for international students. If you're an international student, then you can certainly bring a spouse and dependents with you when you study. You have what's called financial certification, where you have to demonstrate you have sufficient funds available to cover the costs sufficiently in order to bring dependents with you and a spouse. If you're a domestic student, certainly, I mean, lots of our married students, of course, are coming with their spouses and dependents when they study. There are some instances where a student is attending separately and is having a separate household from their family while they're studying, but I'd say it's more typical for them to be bringing their spouses and dependents with them. If I misunderstood that question, please feel free to ask again.
Thank you for that. Another health insurance related question. Is the insurance only for campus students? I believe meaning residential program, or do part-time online students can access the health insurance?
I would recommend going to the Harvard University Health Services website to look at the specific criteria. There are part-time students who do elect to take Harvard insurance. It's not mandatory for part-time students, but it is typically available. But when it comes to the nuance about being on campus versus fully remote, I would encourage you to go to the Harvard University Health Services website to really get the details of that.
Yes, I agree. I believe you may have to opt in versus something that would be kind of built in, right, Michael?
Yeah.
All right, and a comment we have is for individuals from developing countries. What sort of support is provided? I believe I'm not sure if you're looking at
Sure.
the comment, Michael.
I see the question. Yeah. I mean, certainly we do look at one of the factors we look at for international students, and tomorrow we'll be talking more specifically about international students, is that we do look at students who are coming from developing countries, students who are coming from countries which have low incomes. And that is certainly a factor that we look at and is taken into account as part of our overall assessment of financial need and financial resources. So that is a factor we look at. Unfortunately, the reality is that there are lots of students with a lot of financial need, and that unfortunately our funding is limited. So there are certainly many times where there are students who have a great deal of financial need and who are not able to meet it. So that is a reality, and it's something you do need to think about when you're considering attending.
All right, I believe for now, that's all the questions and comment that we had in our Q&A section. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to add them or unmute yourself and ask the question live.
I don't think they can unmute themselves.
Oh, they
Charlie,
can't do that.
can you clarify? I don't think you can unmute yourself. You need to answer the questions in the Q&A, I believe.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Attendees, feel free to type in your questions.
We'll give it another couple minutes to see if there are any other last minute questions. I will just reiterate, and I will sound like a broken record, but there are a couple of sort of keys to making sure that you can be considered. First is just make sure you're looking for that email from us in the early to middle of December. If you don't receive an email by December 15th from the financial aid office, first thing to do is check your spam folder or your junk folder to make sure that maybe it got misdirected into that folder. If around December 15th you haven't gotten an email, there's nothing in your junk folder, then please reach out to us. We are absolutely happy to do some research and send out that link to you again so that you can complete that application. And make sure you meet our deadlines. There's nothing worse than having somebody we feel terrible when somebody after the fact says, oh, I didn't apply and now I'm looking for funding, and we're not able to help them. So do make sure you meet the deadline.
Yes. We do have two questions that came in. Okay, great. So first question is there a student stipend available for the DRPH program?
There are not specifically as part of the funding you would receive through us. The funding you receive through us is 50% of tuition if you have financial need. But there are students who work either through work study or work just for a department or program where you can work to obtain some additional money to help you with your living expenses. But there isn't, say, a sort of a scholarship stipend that you can receive, but there are employment opportunities if you want to try to earn money for living expenses.
Thank you for that. For domestic students, is the financial aid application the same as FAFSA, or is it a separate application?
Completely separate. So the financial aid application through the School of Public Health is what you're completing to be considered for scholarship funding through the Harvard School of Public Health. Filing the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, gives us the information we need to qualify you for federal loans or federal work study. So the two things are completely independent, but we encourage you to complete both.
Yes, and FAFSA is available as of October 1st. So you could do that anytime, whereas the financial aid application will become available to you early December. Next question is, how can I apply for the Commonwealth Scholarship to go through the process of the MPH scholarship?
So for the Commonwealth Scholarship, if you go to our website, you will find a link under the external scholarship opportunities for the Commonwealth Fund. We encourage you to go to that link. They have a completely separate application process. It's not done through our office. They notify us who has been chosen, but it's not done directly through us. So do make sure you go to our website, make sure you understand what the deadlines are, and you can find the link on our website to apply.
All right. I see the link seems to be broken, but I will look
We
into
will,
that.
we will fix it.
Yes.
Nate is a wizard when it comes to fixing the website, so we will fix
We
that.
will
link.
look into that and
So
update
we-
the website.
We apologize for that.
Next question is, I believe we may also be addressing this tomorrow, but for international students who are currently residing permanently in the US, so again, this is a resident in the US who want to do MPH, what kind of financial support is available for international students who are permanent residents in the US?
So you do have the opportunity, if you are a permanent resident, to apply just like a US citizen. So if you are a permanent resident, you can complete the application for the programs that qualify for financial aid. So you are able to submit that. And for the MPH generalist program, if that's what you are applying to, you do have an opportunity to apply for federal loans if you're going to be if you're going to be doing at least 10 credits per semester. So as a permanent resident, you have the same opportunities in general through us as would a US citizen. Now, the exception to that is the Zuckerman Fellowship. I believe you have to be a US citizen to apply for that, but otherwise, and that's done independently of our office, but otherwise you are eligible to apply for our program, financial aid through us.
Perfect. I may need assistance, Michael, on the next one, just so I understand it perfectly.
I
Is this
I don't understand that question. It says,
the university doctorate application?
oh, I think I understand. Is will we take into account, is your chances of being admitted affected by whether you apply for financial aid? And the answer to that is no. There is no impact on your likelihood of being accepted based upon submitting or not submitting a financial aid application. Those are completely independent. To the best of my knowledge, the readers for the admissions committee don't even know who is completing. We don't provide that information, so you should be rest assured that there will be no impact on your admissions likelihood by applying for financial aid.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I believe that was exactly what that individual was going for. So I believe you may have just already addressed it, but
yeah,
you apply for scholarships once
Sure.
admitted or before.
So do I apply once before? So you have to apply before you know if you've been admitted, because the deadline to complete the financial aid application is January 8th. So you won't know by then whether or not you've been admitted to the program. So you absolutely have to apply beforehand. If you wait until after that deadline and then want to apply, unfortunately, you will miss the deadline and you won't be considered. International opportunities, financial aid opportunities for international students. We will address more of this tomorrow, but in general, the basic answer is you have the same chances of receiving scholarship assistance from the School of Public Health as do domestic students. So the fact that you're international does not eliminate your opportunity for consideration. And as we mentioned in an earlier question, one of the factors we do look at is students coming from developing countries and low-income countries. That is a factor we take into account when looking at financial aid applications. So yes, you do have the opportunity for consideration.
Yes, and the application is the same.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's pretty much all the questions we have so far.
I will give it another minute or so for anyone who has a last minute inspiration or last minute desperate question. We are happy to stay on for a bit longer, but we will be making this recording available. So if you want to rewatch it, and certainly you can reach out to us in the financial aid office at our email address. There's also the opportunity to schedule appointments with us through Calendly. You'll find it on our financial aid website under the contact us section. If you want to meet with us, we're happy to have answer general questions. Be aware, we can't answer a question which I'm sure everyone would like to know, which is what is my specific likelihood of receiving funding and what is the amount that I might receive? That's not a question we can answer. Unfortunately, there's just no way to predict ahead of time other than the information we just provided on a specific likelihood of receiving funding. In order for that to be considered, you have to go through the application process and see what happens, unfortunately. All right, since we have no remaining questions available, thank you all very much for attending. And we look forward to meeting with you and hearing your questions and hopefully having you attend, having us attend our school in the future. So best of luck.